Simply Financial with Certified Financial Planner Christopher Calandra is an innovative, comprehensive, informative, and cutting-edge podcast that discusses financial topics ranging from personal finance, economics, politics, and personal growth. Simply Financial will cover intriguing and thought-provoking questions so that the listener can simply increase their financial IQ.
Welcome to episode number 15 of the Simply Financial podcast. I'm your host, Christopher Calandra. Thanks for joining me today. The topic today is cracking the 21st century career code. I have with me as a special guest, Marcia LaReau. She is the president and owner of Forward Motion, LLC. She founded the company in 2007. She is a career strategist that works with both job seekers and employers to ensure business and career success. Part of the reason that Marcia is on today, and I've known her for some 8 years or so, is she just published her first book, Career Mageddon. Her co-author is Neil Patrick, and today we're going to talk about the book and her thoughts on careers in this century. So Marcia, thank you so very much for joining me today.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So to begin with, it's your first book. Why did you and Neil decide to write Career Mageddon?
It's interesting as we are all into this whole career scene. I don't think there's anybody in the U.S. since 2007 or 8, the Great Recession, that hasn't been thinking about career issues, even if they've been employed through the whole thing. And what we're learning is that technologies and other factors are changing jobs so quickly that more jobs are leaving the workplace than we're able to generate moving forward. So with that in mind, how do we even begin to cope with this?
So this book, you're a professional career strategist. You work with people day in and day out. Neil Patrick, I don't know him personally. I see from the material I reviewed in preparation for the podcast is a very accomplished business strategist in his own right. So who is the audience for this book?
That's a really good question, because the first thing is, job seekers.
Okay.
They're going to want to read this book. But what we're realizing now, and this is critical, if people, and this is what we've done in this country, we get a job and we do the job, and then if we lose the job, we look for another job. At that point, if we wait, it's too late. Things are changing so quickly. People are in jobs most of the time a maximum of 3 years. So knowing that that's what's going to happen, we need to have a strategy that doesn't look to the next job. It looks to the one after that and the one after that. So I'm working with people to think at least 2 jumps ahead so that they can manage it and alter what needs to be altered as things change.
Wonderful. Okay. So one of the premises of your book is that there's a global job crisis. And I think it was worthwhile in the book you noted about everything seems to be a crisis today. If you read, if you watch the news, there's this crisis, that crisis. So in some ways, the word crisis doesn't mean what it used to be. But I think it is a genuine long-term trend where the nature of the workforce is going to continue to change dramatically. We're going to talk about that today. But can you just touch on your view of what you describe as the global jobs crisis?
And yes. And the interesting thing about it is it's not really my view. We can look at the World Bank, and they are telling us that by 2030, we've got to have 600 million more jobs in first world countries if we're going to keep up, if people are going to have a revenue stream. If we look at the OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, and the International Labor Organization also, they're looking at least 100 million jobs. Now, this was cited in G20.
Okay.
When the G20 thing came through, and they were saying, we have a global jobs crisis now. So no matter where you go, it's not just U.S., it is global. We have real issues, and it has nothing to do with politics.
Okay. So you do cite in the book some, I think you call it the 6 engines of change. Mm-hmm. So maybe we could go through some of those 6 engines of change and touch on those a little bit. Mm-hmm. We can't go into it as great a depth as you do in the book, but if you could touch on globalization and offshoring, we hear a lot about that. You mentioned that the book is not a political book. but coming on the heels of last year's election and even the elections before, there's a lot of talk of globalization, shipping jobs overseas. Many Americans have been touched by it, and most Americans know somebody that have been deeply affected by this trend. So can you touch on that and how it plays into the global jobs crisis?
Yes. So Neil and I were looking for, how do we look forward? How do we manage a career looking forward? And the deal is, everybody needs a revenue stream if they're going to survive for themselves, their family. So what are the engines that change? And we divide them into two groups. So the first group, globalization, offshoring, technology, artificial intelligence, robotics, disruptive business models like Uber. Now these are a natural part of the free market economy. They're coming in, businesses are making decisions to go driverless. Businesses are making decisions that I don't have to go to the bank. I can actually take pictures of my check through my iPhone. I don't need to go to the bank.
That's right.
So we look at those. These are natural. We can get more money by not needing all these people. So by efficiencies brought on by technologies, if I were a person that, I go to banks all day and I fix those ATMs, they need to be looking for another job because they're not going to have one. So the first set is just about the natural economic ways that businesses want to be efficient and manage their revenue. The other three, sometimes economic policy can impact upon them, but this is education and the speed of change. I haven't met anybody that doesn't think our educational system needs changing.
And so, I don't know what your opinion is, and this is a little off topic, but I think over the next 10, 12 years, we're set to see an enormous amount of change in education. Yes. It's been resistant to technology in many, many ways, but I think those walls will come down soon and we'll see an enormous amount of change.
A huge change. I agree with you completely, and I also think it has to change. As someone who's spent most of my career in education, I'm looking forward to it, and the opportunities are going to be incredible. So another part of the second group, which is a part of society like demographics, for example, we know that millennials are going to, they're going to look at the entire job place, they're going to manage it by 50%. Millennials are going to dominate the workforce for the next 50 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's a demographic to think about.
Yes.
So if companies aren't so cool about getting millennials in, that's going to be a problem because they're not going to have anybody to get in if they're not going to be interested in the millennials.
That makes complete sense.
So demographics, education, fiscal policy, those are things that affect this second set of engines.
So one of the things you talk about in the first grouping, which includes globalization and offshoring, technology, artificial intelligence, robotics, and generally disruptive business models, what I think is really important to consider with this is the pace of change, because economies have changed and there's been technological advances from the steam engine to the railroad to the airplane to the computer, but it's not just the change, right? Isn't it the fast pace that a company like a Facebook or an Uber or Airbnb, they're not only going to change the competitive landscape for their industry, it's going to happen in the blink of an eye.
Yes, you are right on target with that. And that's why people have to know how to look, how to listen differently, to see if their job is going to be no longer in existence. I tell people in corporate worlds, they need to have a really good friend in IT. Because somebody comes out, what's going on in IT? Well, we're gonna hire a bunch of systems analysts. Really? Systems analysts? Well, that means they're going to analyze systems, which means maybe there's an M&A where there's going to be a combination of technology systems from one company to another that are going to merge.
Right.
Having a friend in IT, if somebody's in a corporate world, I think it's critical.
Yes. Now, as this fast pace of change continues and you have this global job crisis, because in many instances you have more jobs dropping off because of technology than are being added, and the individuals getting dislocated from the job loss are not the same ones that'll be well positioned for the new industries that are created. So I have a trivia question for you. Is what is the number one occupation in terms of the most amount of people are in this occupational field?
In the U.S.?
Yes.
First world countries? Drivers.
Drivers. And so you have coming down the pike driverless cars and trucks. So I'm excited about that. I drive a decent amount. I think the power of that in terms of safety, convenience, efficiency, environmental issues, I mean, it's a really powerful thing that's coming down our way. And I think it's going to be good on balance. But not if you're a driver.
Yes. So I work with anybody. I mean, I work with senior executives in major insurance companies. But I also work with this guy. He's one of my heroes. He's a driver. He's a truck driver. This guy actually was a heroin addict and an alcoholic, and he pulled himself out, got his CDL license, and started driving. He's one of my heroes.
It's an American success story, right?
Incredible guy. A little scary to look at, but incredible guy. So this dude is sitting there, and I'm going, you know, Tom, this is going to go away, and you need to be watching. And so we sat down and we brainstormed it, and we came up with, you know, I love to fix trucks, and I know how to do it. And if there's no driver in that truck, someone's going to have to be dispatched to fix it. And
Absolutely.
I want to be that person.
Yes.
So he's already started training. He's already started buying his tools so that he can shift as this is coming about.
That's right. Because I use as an example all the time, you know, the classic example, you know, the horse and buggy, all the people that were in the horse and buggy industry that got replaced by the cars. Those individuals, those families, they probably ended up okay in different careers. More recently, you look at travel agents. At the age I am at 47, I remember as a young adult, I would go to a travel agent when I first got into the working world and planned my honeymoon, an example, through a travel agent. So I remember that vividly. I don't remember the horse and buggy people. But they're all gone.
Yes.
I mean, pretty much. I think there's some corporate travel agents that still are bouncing around, but by and large, there had to be a vast number of travel agents because every single town had a few travel agencies. They're all gone.
Do it online, do it yourself.
Yes.
Yes.
So they figured out a way, but your point is at Forward Motion, your company, and what you talk about in the book is to get ready for what is going to happen in your industry, to be thinking about the changes that are coming, how technology and other factors are influencing the business. And you use the term design a career plan. So could you talk about designing a career plan?
Sure. So in response to what you just said, too, people have skills they're not aware of. And oftentimes they're the skills that come so naturally to them, they don't think of them as a skill. I talk to people, and I said, what do you do? What do you like to do? He said, I get along with people. And it's like, that's a skill.
Yeah.
And it's valuable. And so talking with people, well, what group do you like to work with? You know, I've got a son and a daughter, and they're millennials, and I love being with those people. Oh, we're going to need managers of millennials. So going through this career plan, I cite 5 things. The first, we need to understand, a person needs to understand their values, because that's where we get meaning in the work we do. Everybody that comes to me says, I want a job that's meaningful, makes a difference. So that's their values. Okay. Second might be, I call it the attributes. That's what we are no matter where we are, like a sense of humor. You're a positive person. I don't care when I talk to you, you're a positive guy. That's an attribute. No matter where you are, you're positive. So then we come to the skills, and I call them sets of skills. And then we get to the environment. I think people leave this out. What environment is a person optimally successful? A lot of people, few people, corporate world, desk, outdoors, car. What is the environment, and what's the mix of environment for optimal success? So that's critical too, and we forget that. But then you take all those, and that's about the person, and you have to overlay the market. And that's what I think other career management people forget. There's a market. It's supply and demand. Can I tell you a short story?
Please.
So a young man came to me, and he says, I just finished my